parties as Kemi Badenoch winds up her conference with a surprise policy announcement to abolish stamp duty. Despite dwindling attendance numbers and stifling nostalgia for the Thatcher years, could the Tory party really be putting itself back in the race? Also tonight, the British steel industry could be heading for Armageddon after the EU hints at new 50% tariffs coming in after Donald Trump's administration imposed 50% tariffs on our steel just weeks ago. Is there time to save this fundamental industry? Plus,
China.
yes, Britain's chief prosecutor, not the man you just saw, says that the China spy trial collapsed because the government failed to publicly declare China a threat, leaving the two suspects to walk free. MPs are furious, but the government insists it handed over all relevant information. Who's really to blame? Also tonight,
there are some things I read in this book that almost turned me into a Remainer, if not a Romaniac.
well, the one and only Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg interviewed the Bruges Group's Robert Alds about the mysterious Gully Foyle's new book, 75 Brexit Benefits, and some of the answers might surprise you. Well, State of the Nation starts now. Well, I'll also be joined by my most preternaturally pertinacious? My goodness me, the Jacob Rees-Mogg lexicon is slightly wider than my own. But the former spokesman for Reform UK, Gawain Towler, and the political consultant and former Labour candidate, Kevin Craig. Now, don't forget to let me know what you think all throughout the programme, gbnews.com/yoursay, or indeed tweet us at GBNews. But all of that is so much more to come. We're going to get first stuck in to your latest news roundup with Tatiana.
Tom, thank you very much and good evening. The top stories. The man who carried out the Manchester synagogue attack made a 999 call in which he pledged allegiance to the so-called Islamic State group. Jihad al-Shami was shot dead by police outside the Heaton Park Hebrew Congregation Synagogue after a car and knife attack that saw 2 Jewish men killed. The call was made after al-Shami's car hit a wall after he drove into worshippers. Melvin Kravitz, 66, and 53-year-old Adrian Dalby died in the attack. The head of Counter-Terrorism Police Northwest spoke this evening.
Minutes after the first call was made to GMP, and as firearms officers were making their way to the scene, al-Shami called 999, claiming responsibility for the attack. He also pledged allegiance to Islamic State. We are more confident that he was influenced by extreme Islamist ideology, and the 999 call forms part of this assessment. It's important to stress that we look across all the evidence gathered in order to make our assessment of the motivation behind the attack.
In other news, GB News can exclusively reveal that more than 1,000 small boat migrants have crossed the English Channel today. It takes the total for the year to more than 35,400. The figure brings this year's total just 1,500 short of last year's entire figure, a major blow to the government's pledge to smash the gangs. Maritime sources warn crossings could surpass last year's total within days, with more clear weather ahead. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood says the crossings are utterly unacceptable, insisting the UK will restore order to its borders. Kemi Badenoch has vowed to abolish stamp duty, calling it a bad tax, as she delivered her first keynote speech as Conservative leader in Manchester. She's promising a new economic golden rule, splitting savings between cutting the deficit and lowering taxes, and pledging £47 billion in cuts, with £9 billion in new spending. Ms Badenoch told party members only the Conservatives can restore a strong economy and secure borders, accusing Labour of a borrowing and tax doom loop. Sir Keir Starmer is facing mounting pressure after the collapse of a major spy trial involving 2 men accused of working for China. The UK's chief prosecutor says ministers failed to hand over vital evidence despite months of requests from the CPS. Critics claim Labour put ties with Beijing ahead of national security. Calls are now growing for ministers to explain in Parliament how one of the UK's most sensitive spy cases unravelled. Those are the latest headlines for now. More in an hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Welcome back to State of the Nation. Now today, major party conference season comes to an end. Reform, Lib Dem, Labour, Tory, these parties spoke to themselves over the last 5 weeks. But what did they get out of it? Well, Reform, for its part, grew up. More professional than ever, but overshadowed by a government resignation, a reshuffle and a row over vaccines. The Lib Dems emphasised their own niche, the loudest anti-Trump party, coming for the votes of a polite Middle England outraged by other parties, in their view sucking up to a most vulgar American president. Well, for their part, the Labour Party was a party paranoid. In every speech, in every fringe, in every corridor, in every hall, one word rang out beyond any other.
Farage, as Farage said, Nigel Farage, these are Farage boats.
We've got to call out Farage and his cronies.
Farage. Yes, across those halls of Liverpool, Reform was the ghost in the room. But then we come to the Tories. This was a make-or-break moment for the party. Is it even relevant anymore? Could it show enough signs of life to avoid an inevitable slide to oblivion? At first, the signs of life were scarce to see. Empty seats and a ghostly exhibition space. Everywhere you looked were signs of a party very much diminished. By some measures, this was a party on its way out. One that had more to say about its past than its future. Everywhere you looked was one former Prime Minister. Have a look at this. They've turned all of these party activists into a giant mosaic of the face of Margaret Thatcher. In fact, Margaret Thatcher is everywhere at this party conference, if you look around. Yes, the great lady was indeed everywhere. A giant mosaic of Margaret Thatcher, several cardboard cutouts of Margaret Thatcher, even an exhibition of iconic suits worn by Margaret Thatcher. But beyond the nostalgia, slowly the conference did pick up, did start to look forward, not back. The message discipline was indeed strong. Borders, economy, a 200-page legal advice that showed the way out of the ECHR, paving the way to repeal the Human Rights Act, commitments to ICE-style removal squads and ending immigration tribunals. Finally, clarity of policy and a clear sign that the work has been done. That this party hasn't been simply twiddling its thumbs through its slide to irrelevance. Borders, economy. These new twin lodestars to right the course of HMS Conservative Party. Badenoch clearly views economic competence to be a crucial and winnable battleground for her party. While the economic warning lights of the country flash red on the Chancellor's dashboard, the Tories themselves see a niche. New policies, almost £50 billion of spending cuts, or as the Shadow Chancellor brands them, savings, and a new golden economic rule, that at least half of all savings identified across government departments will go to deficit reduction. Only 50 pence or less in each pound saved may be used for growth-boosting tax cuts. One such tax cut was that oh-so-rare thing in British politics, a genuinely well-kept secret. Yes, the abolition of the tax that economists and home buyers alike agree is a terrible tax. Well, now, after a year of prevarication, the Tories have policy on which to stand. They have clear principle. The only question that remains is, did it all come far too late? Far too late for the party that's fallen now to third place in the opinion polls. Well, as ever, let me know what you think. Go to gbnews.com/your say or tweet us at GBNews. Well, earlier today at the Conservative Party conference in Manchester, I sat down with the Shadow Chancellor, Sir Mel Stride, after a series of economic announcements. Shadow Chancellor, an enormous announcement abolishing stamp duty in its entirety. Is this just on homes?
This is on primary residences. And the advantage of doing this, Tom, is that we are going to free up space within the housing market, so people downsizing when the children leave without fear of having to pay this huge punitive tax. People are going to be able to get onto the housing ladder much more affordably, and that's very important, particularly for those first-time buyers, those younger people. And they're going to be able to move around between different areas, which is important for the job market. So at every level, this one adds up. A very conservative tax cut.
Now, this won't be for second homes. This won't be across other forms of property. This is just about primary residences.
Correct.
How much will that cost?
It'll cost about £9 billion.
Now, that's a huge amount of money. Obviously, the question is, where's that money coming from?
So I set out actually in my speech on Monday that we have identified and will drive through savings of £47 billion. That's largely across welfare, but it's also across cutting down the size of the civil service back to where it was in 2016, and
Just
other
on
measures
that point,
too. Yeah.
Haven't there been a number of prime ministers who've promised to get the civil service down to the size it was before COVID? Rishi Sunak announced exactly the same thing when he was prime minister. It never happened.
We will do it over a 5-year period. And we will be basically rowing back on what has been a growth in the size of the civil service since 2016 of over a third. And of course, we had COVID and we had Brexit in the interim. And that, of course, probably did need more civil servants. But we don't have those things now. The state functioned perfectly adequately in terms of civil servants in 2016. And we will take it back to 2016 at a saving of £8 billion.
Now, of course, you made a big speech on Monday announcing where you're going to be finding these savings, but also some slightly curious announcements on spending packages and tax reductions too. Is it not a problem that when you're looking at business rates, you made this announcement specifically for high streets and pubs, is this not a further complication to already a tax code that's 20,000 pages long? You're having more carve-outs in this tax code rather than going for the fundamental of lower, flatter, simpler taxes. Instead, there's a special bung for a special kind of business. That's not conservative.
There's no greater simplification around tax than abolishing taxes altogether. And if you take high streets, that's abolishing it for those shops and so on, and pubs. If you take stamp duty, that is the abolition of it right across all the different thresholds.
Stamp duty, you've done an absolute abolition. That's true. That's not a complication. That's economists are saying that's a very good thing. But when it comes to business rates, haven't you done a fiddly little tweak where you haven't got rid of business rates for all kinds of businesses, just those that are on a high street? How is a high street defined? Just those that are pubs. Well, I mean, could any shop institute a sort of, one of those pulling things and suddenly they're a pub?
So all of that architecture around how you administer the tax and who falls due to it and so on is already there. So you have a class of use of the premises in the high streets that is already known, and you have a mechanism by which there is an exemption up to a certain level.
Let's be honest,
and
the reason why you're not,
that level.
Let's
so
be
all
honest,
of those come out of it.
The reason why you're not doing the proper conservative thing here is you can't afford to. The reason why you're only applying it to one specific element of business rates rather than across the board is because there isn't any money.
No, the reason why we're doing what we're doing and not going for absolutely everything, etc., or every tax for that matter, is the proper conservative thing to do, as you express it, Tom, is to live within our means and demonstrate that the numbers add up and that we will be bringing down the deficit and the debt, as well as leaving the room to do the things that we need to get taxes down and grow the economy.
Before I let you go, is it sustainable that pensions rise by at least 2.5% when growth is at zero?
We are standing, we will not have growth at zero, okay? and growth is the key, Tom, you're absolutely right. All of our agenda is about business, growth, growing the economy, making it more productive. And when you do that, you can afford these things. But if you don't do it and do what this government is doing, which is to have anemic growth because they're taking the wrong choices, that's when you run into problems.
Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride, thanks indeed for joining us. Well, you can see the full version of that interview on the GB News online platforms, but let's dissect some of it now. I'm delighted to be joined by the former spokesman for Reform UK, Gawain Towler, and the former Labour candidate, Kevin Craig. Kevin, the Tories actually have something to say now.
What, one tax reduction funded by things that might be delivered elsewhere? I mean, is that it? Do they expect us to forget what they actually did as opposed to what they promise? He finished off by saying anemic growth. Well, interest rates have gone down under this government. They didn't under your lot, Mel.
What was growth in July?
Well, all I'm referring to is that the growth from January to July for that half of the year was the fastest in the G7. I don't know the figure for July precisely.
The figure for July was 0.
Yeah, but overall for the 6 months, it was the fastest in the G7.
Yeah,
and some predictions have it
This is when the
2%.
Trump tariffs hit.
Yeah.
The effect of those mean that actually the UK is expected by the IMF to have collapsed its growth forecast. They've been more than halved by the IMF. This is why the budget next month is going to be quite so painful.
Well, the budget is going to be painful because we are clearing up. Look, I want to just answer your first question. We're clearing up a long mess, but why? It is just.
Hang on, if we were the fastest growing country in the G7, if you really genuinely believe that, Rachel Reeves would have lots of money to play with.
No, because, as you know, and I actually thought your summary today was much more accessible than the lovely Jacob's Latin stuff that we normally get, right? The fact is, the reason there's such little room for manoeuvre is because of the amount of debt we had, and that has obviously built up hugely since COVID-19, and the government is bringing in billions of investment. JP Morgan Chase today, 300 million into Bournemouth, into a new campus. There were billions of investment coming in. Business confidence is actually high. But why should we, and maybe we can agree with Gawain and the Reform Party, why should we believe the Tories? There was nobody there, hardly anyone there under 50, OK? I actually think Kemi did a good job of a really difficult gig. Right, but that party, next week, you're going to see polling from release that says they're 10 to 15% in the polls. If you want right-wing politics, you go to this slot.
Well, what a time to bring in Gawain.
Well, I would say that, wouldn't I? Thank you. I do think that Kemi did surprisingly well, given the brief and given the situation she's under. But, and I think that it's entirely possible that post this there will be a small blip. But I don't think there's the sustainability in these things. And I think whilst I like the policy on stamp duty, I absolutely do. I think it'll increase house building as well as improve the ability to move to this, there, and others. I don't think that. I don't think it's fully costed. We're going to cut a third of civil servants. I suspect that Unison and PCS. I mean, you'll have a massive strike on your hands. There will be so much trouble. So, whilst I applaud their ambition, and I do. But I do think that they're not prepared for what will come with that. Does
that mean that you can't do any sort of reform because the unions might strike?
I absolutely think you've got to, but I'm not sure they've got the stomach for the game. Looking at the people they've got on their back benches, I don't think the Conservative Party, whilst it likes the sound of this, but they've been eulogising Thatcher all week. And I disagree, by the way. Today in the hall, you did see some of the more traditional Tory people turning up. But for the rest of the few days, from everyone I know who's been there, it's mostly young men. A lot of young men, but not the people you need to actually make things happen, which are those people that you're talking about. And they were there today, but it wasn't there the last few days.
The party, I think, again, the Tory party membership is in free fall.
Well, we know that.
Right? And they... Just because I was with a former Tory minister yesterday and he said something really striking to me. He said, just because something has always existed, it doesn't mean it has the right to forever, right?
Yeah.
And the reality is, and, the Labour in the past, we went through our own issues with this where we weren't clear about what we wanted to do. The Conservative Party, when there are bad election results come next year, then the pressure's going to rise. Then you're going to see Jenrick making his move.
Well, you have seen it in both France and Italy. The traditional centre-right party has gone to almost nowhere. Gwen, I do want to ask you about reform, though, Gwen, because one of the things that the Conservative Party sees and has been saying today is there's a gap in the market for fiscal conservatism, for being centre-right economically. You talk to senior people in the Conservative Party and they say reform is a left-wing party.
Oh, they say with the left of Jeremy Corbyn, they're bats. They're absolutely bats to say such a thing. They know it, we know it. We would like to see tax cuts on ordinary people. No mention of the NIC growth.
You want welfare spending to rise on child benefits?
We want a significant cut to welfare spending across the board, but we do want to encourage families...
On welfare?
Absolutely.
Families on welfare to have more children?
No, if you look at the welfare policy we've stated, it's only people in work that get those extra benefits. So, no, it's not families on welfare.
No, still on welfare, but in work welfare.
Well, indeed, but at least people in work. We want to make work pay. And nothing here suggests that the Tories are serious about making work pay. We've got 5,000 people a week, I believe, moving from unemployment to welfare. And once you've done that, they never go back.
OK, well, thank you indeed to my panel and indeed Sir Mel Stride. But coming up next, yes, it's the British steel industry could be heading for Armageddon. This after the EU has hinted at 50% tariffs. Well, this is coming, of course, after Trump imposed 50% levies on our steel just 3 weeks ago. Is there time to save this fundamental industry?
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Liz Mitchell, MBE, gracing us with her presence on the sofa this morning. Liz, so good to have you with us.
I am happy to be here.
You have the most incredible voice, the voice of a generation, the whole disco era. It is down to you. What do you think has made your songs so timeless? I mean, everybody knows them, don't they?
Everybody knows them.
Everybody.
One thing I'm very grateful for is the temper of our music, because it seems to be very friendly, warming, and even our slow songs. I was playing one just the other day for my 2-year-old grandson, and he said, more. I was so happy.
I'm with him on that. There's a real sense with your music, though, that it is uplifting.
Yes.
And you feel happy listening to it. I mean, despite whatever it is you're singing about, almost, it's just there's a joy to it.
Yes, and that is really a gift, I think, that most artists would want to have, is that when they make their music that is lasting and that is bringing happiness to people. Because for me, that's the whole point of singing. You know, you should be able to make the people you're entertaining feel happy, hear something good, forget the pain for a moment and just want to dance and just feel good.
And Boney M music is all over TikTok, isn't it? It's being remixed all the time. How do you feel watching your music being reinvented like that?
It is really wonderful. This has been going on since the 90s, even before the 90s, people were remixing our songs. So it's the uniqueness of the vocals, because that's what is given to them, just the plain vocals, and then they put new music on it, and it still sounds like Boney M.
The People's Channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get us on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's 23 minutes past 8. This is State of the Nation. And the State of the Nation tonight, well, it's slightly worrying. Could Europe kill off British steel? Warnings abound that our steel is facing the biggest crisis in its history after the European Union threatened to impose tariffs of up to 50% on the industry. Well, the EU has announced plans to impose tariffs on all steel imports as Brussels looks to counter a potential flood of cheap Chinese steel into the trading bloc. Well, this comes after weeks of the British government failing to meet its negotiating deadline with the United States to exempt British steel from Trump's own tariffs, which are still at 50%. Officials are now scrambling to negotiate an exemption, but can the industry really be saved? Well, let's go to my panel. The Reform UK former spokesman, Gawain Towler, and the former Labour candidate, Kevin Craig. Gawain, this is really concerning.
Well, yes, it is. And can the industry be saved is the question. Yes, but that is, you have to deal with the key cost, which is energy. And this country has the highest industrial fuel prices and energy prices in the world. How do you do that? Not under this government and not under the last government. They have conspired, it feels, to ramp up those prices, not just on steel, across the board. So Can we save it? Yeah. But we have to have a massive change of policy when it comes to energy prices and net zero and the entire... You cannot run a steel mill or a Bessemer furnace on a wind farm. I'm sorry, you can't.
Kevin, have we somehow been sort of tariffing our own steel for the last 2 decades? Not because there are these 50% tariffs that may or may not come in from the European Union, but because we've raised the prices of the energy by the equivalent of a tariff.
Well, the question you started off with, Tom, is about the EU tariffs and whether they're going to kill off British steel. So the British government, the Labour government, is urgently working with the Commission for clarification on all of this. The steel is not dead in this country. The Labour government, I want to deal in facts as opposed to going getting sort of off his chest in that manner.
Really?
The government stepped in to save...
Because Farage said it must happen.
Nothing to do with Nige. Nothing to do with Nige. Sorry to disappoint you, it's what they did. 2,700 jobs saved. The tariff deal will be signed with the United States of America because the Prime Minister has got a great working relationship with Trump, despite the fact that some on the far left don't like it. Tata Steel, however you pronounce it, investing over £1 billion in low-carbon futures for steel, because you are right, because some of the energy costs associated with it are very prohibitive. It is an old industry, but the jobs can be saved. And this government, the detail is, around old industrial heartlands, this government is busting it. It got one of the biggest cheers at Labour Party conference. I was there the week before last when it was talked about what has the Labour government done for steel in areas where we need the jobs. So, yes, energy prices, they do need to come down. You hear business. It was a big theme again at party conference on the business day, but it's not dead, and we have to fight for this industry.
But it's fair to say that Keir Starmer wanted to get 0% tariffs going to the US for our steel. He said that he'd negotiated that. But then, when we read the detail of the deal in black and white, there's no exemption for British steel.
Yeah, but it looks to me like we've avoided 50% tariffs. We've got a better deal than we would have at the start, and you can attribute specific tariff reductions due to the negotiations. I mean, Donald said it. The President complimented Keir Starmer on his negotiating. He got a great deal.
If the other side compliments the guy, I mean, surely he's not that much of a schmuck.
No, he's not a schmuck, but I'm just saying that the Labour government is really focused on specifics, not just saying it's because Nigel opened his mouth that this happened and the Tories that, the Labour that. What have we done? What's the government done? It's fighting like a ferret in a sack to protect jobs in steel.
Gwaine, you're cheering that it was Farage who saved British steel.
His step up and step to that.
But hang on, this was Reform saying nationalise something.
Yes, something that we see as a key strategic asset. An absolute key strategic asset. I mean, the ability to be able to make our own virgin steel, which arc furnaces can't. The Tata investment, I have huge question marks over it. It is not surprising that the GMB, Gary Smith, the GMB, is saying this has to change. The net zero policy is crucifying British industry, exporting jobs across the board. Now, these tariffs, these suggested tariffs by the Commission, I hope your negotiators are capable of doing it, but I doubt it very much, given what we've seen already. But I pray they can. But I have not seen a British negotiation with the EU being effective since Brexit, because nobody in the negotiating teams wants to take advantage of the opportunities created. They want to mitigate what they see as a disaster. And so always, and you made the comment, Tom, Trump says well done on negotiations as he pockets the balance. The EU said well done on the negotiations, they pocket the balance. We need to do better, and I haven't yet seen any evidence of that.
Gwaine, just one final thing.
Yeah.
It might be that the British negotiators get an exemption for Britain
I know they do.
in terms of EU steel tariffs, but they won't get it for nothing. We might have to give something to the Europeans.
We've already given up our fish. We've already given up this, that and the other. Yeah, I agree. The negotiations seem to me almost lost. But the way we can become competitive is by cutting those energy prices. And it's not just steel, it's across the board.
I mean, look, we're going to finish on this item, but Brexit has not helped our steel industry. It hasn't. It's created these barriers between us and the largest trading partner, and it's an example of, you asked the British public right now, but you asked the public right now, they wouldn't vote out again. Now, we've done it, but I'm just saying.
Yeah. Some on the left might argue that the state aid rules of the European Union would have prevented the kind of nationalisation that the government ended up stepping in with. I mean, that's just a sort of constitutional point, but there's so much more to divulge there and to discuss, but we just don't have time. Thanks indeed to my panel. Now, the UK's top prosecutor says that the China spy trial collapsed because the government failed to deliver enough evidence, leaving 2 suspects to walk free. Who's really to blame? We'll find out after this.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
There are a couple of watch points with the weather across southern Europe as we go through tomorrow. Heavy thundery rain around eastern Spain, and Storm Barbara affecting southeastern parts of Europe, pushing into western Turkey, could bring 100 to 150 millimetres of rain. Elsewhere, lots of dry weather, but like I said, across eastern Spain towards the Balearics, heavy thundery rain through the next few days could bring 200 millimetres or so in some places, which is around 3 times the October average. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good evening. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. There is a little bit of rain pushing its way southwards across northern parts through tonight into tomorrow, but many places staying largely dry. The rain in the north is due to a frontal system that's already made its way in across northern and western Scotland, and with this we're seeing the winds strengthening further as we go through the night, risk of gales in some exposed spots. The rain does also edge its way southwards into southern parts of Scotland, perhaps northern England and Northern Ireland as we head towards dawn tomorrow, but further south across much of England and Wales staying largely dry, some clear spells around, and with light winds, clear spells, temperatures are going to drop and there could be some locally dense patches of fog forming as we head through the early hours of tomorrow morning. Otherwise, through tomorrow morning then, a mostly dry start across much of Scotland, the rain having pushed its way in towards the south, and so the borders area waking up to a bit of a damp picture, and also quite damp across Northern Ireland, and there will be a few spots of rain across some parts of northern England where the cloud is thick enough, but across the rest of England and Wales really it's a dry start to the day, and there will be some sunshine around, and so that sunshine should help clear any mist and fog patches that do develop overnight. Staying pretty grey, quite murky with low cloud and drizzly rain across Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, parts of northern England and perhaps the far north of Wales as well through tomorrow. Otherwise, a generally dry picture, often quite cloudy, but there should be some sunshine breaking through, and in the sunshine feeling relatively warm with temperatures in the high teens for most of us. Overnight there will be a bit more damp weather pushing into parts of western Scotland. That will clear though as we go through into Friday, and so actually Friday for many, away from perhaps Orkney and Shetland where there'll be a few showery bursts of rain around, actually Friday looks like a largely dry day with some decent sunshine on offer. Quite a bit of cloud to come as we go through this weekend, particularly on Sunday, but most of us will see the sunshine at times. Bye-bye.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racist tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's 34 minutes past 8. Now, Britain's chief prosecutor has said that the trial against 2 men accused of spying for China all collapsed because the government failed to provide enough evidence. Well, charges against 2 men, parliamentary researcher Christopher Cash and teacher Christopher Berry, were dropped, leading to backlash from MPs on all sides. The Director of Public Prosecution says that despite months of effort, witness statements didn't meet the bar to prosecute. Meanwhile, the government said that any claims it withheld evidence are untrue. But what's really going on here? Delighted to be joined by the columnist for The Times, Cindy Yu. Cindy, it seems that the government may have deliberately crashed this trial. At least that's one of the suggestions.
That is certainly one of the suggestions from some of the government's critics. And Stephen Parkinson, the head of the Crown Prosecution Service, wouldn't mind it if that's what we thought as well. You know, last night he sent out this letter to MPs, which basically said, look, it's not me, Gov, it's the government, blaming the government for not putting forward enough evidence to prove that China was a threat to national security, despite, he says, many months of trying. So he's very much saying, it wasn't me. Now, the curious thing about this, though, is that since that letter has come out, a former director of public prosecution, Ken MacDonald, has actually said that Stephen Parkinson's explanation doesn't make sense. That actually the prosecution service wouldn't have needed extra evidence from the government that Stephen Parkinson said it needed, and that the trial could have gone ahead with whatever evidence that they had before, enough to charge them, the two men, with, certainly. And so the situation gets mysteriouser by the hour, because there is clearly so much that we don't know that's going on here. There's a massive blame game going on. And all the while, you know, the evidence that led to these two men being charged will never really be looked at properly in a court of law now. And so we're all left pretty much baffled as to what has happened.
It does seem baffling. It does seem ridiculous, frankly, after months of work and the arrest of these men, the publication of their names. It looked like there was a hell of a lot of evidence there. The suspicion from people is, I mean, is it just more convenient for the country, for the government, to not prosecute people accused of spying for China when they're trying to have closer economic relations with China?
Look, this trial not going ahead this autumn definitely makes Keir Starmer's life easier. You know, at least he might have thought that before all of this, you know, furore in the last month or so. But the trial not going ahead, you know, it would have been a massive sticking point between UK-China relations. Keir Starmer was looking to go to China this autumn, perhaps early next year now. And so he wouldn't have wanted this big case in between. Now, China, for its own part, has always denied that these men have anything to do with it, but that is what they would say. Nevertheless, you know, dragging China through this kind of public media scrutiny of what the Chinese are supposed to have done would have definitely been a tension in the bilateral relationship, as well as, of course, the super embassy that is still stuck in limbo. So I think definitely the government would find it more convenient for this trial not to go ahead. Now, whether or not that is the reason for it not going ahead, you know, that's the part that we really don't know. I think what is really clear is that the Official Secrets Act, the law under which these two men were charged, which is no longer in use because it's been replaced by the National Security Act, was just not fit for purpose, because you had to go this extra mile to talk about the enemy state rather than just any foreign state. So it just wasn't fit for purpose, and frankly couldn't have been replaced sooner.
So much mystery in all of this, as with all things espionage related, I suppose. Cindy Yu, thanks indeed for helping clearing up so much of that. But now let's jump to the United States. We're seeing live pictures on our screens imminently of the President Donald Trump, the US President, hosting a roundtable with cabinet ministers at the White House discussing negotiations with Hamas. We're going to bring you the latest on this as it happens. And indeed, if you want to keep up to date with all the latest on the US President's roundtable, you can scan the QR code on your screen now. GBN2 is on our YouTube channel. And a big thank you to Cindy Yu too. Let's get a quick word with my panel, Gwaine Towler and Kevin Craig. Kevin, convenient for the government.
Very briefly, Tom, what a load of old nonsense I've just heard. Starmer was clear today in India that it was a legal decision. It originally occurred under the last government, translated over to this one. We're not talking about Blunt and a Cambridge spy ring from the Best Le Carre novel. They look like two young Tory researchers. I suspect it wasn't high espionage. A select committee is going to have witnesses in front of it and dig into all of this. And the reality is China and the UK are always trying to spy on each other, as well as having very significant commercial relations, and Also, the biggest story this week is that China is one of the biggest users of renewable energy in the world. There's too much
also
conjecture.
one of the biggest users of coal.
Yes, but this is too much conjecture here. As the story this week is about what China's doing on renewables, and this is the select committees will see it. But the idea that Starmer intervened on this is nonsense, in my opinion.
Dwayne,
I find the complacency about our relationship with China absolutely staggering. They are our enemy. They really are. And the activities of this government, maybe not this, and I don't know enough, but maybe not this, but on Chagos and on their super embassy and on the allowance of Chinese state authorities to have mini courts and prison stations in places like Glasgow and elsewhere. This is a real problem. And we know that China is flooding our higher education institutions and stealing property and stealing intellectual property. This is a real study. And myself personally, I think I'm the only person who has ever gone out publicly and said the Chinese security services tried to recruit me as a spy. Well, they clearly hadn't checked my CV, because I prefer to live in a gutter than betray my country. But that happened. They wanted me to do much the same as these children, these young men are accused of doing. They wanted me to provide briefings on cabinet ministers, and then. Oh, but how about getting hold of documents before they're public? And they gave me a clever device on my phone, an app on my phone to upload documents into Instagram that they could download documents from. It was extraordinary. It was a number about 4, 5, 6 years ago.
Wow.
But I wrote about this, but I think I'm the only person who has admitted. But if they were going for me, how many other hundreds of people have they been trying to engage?
That's a fascinating story. I wish we could discuss it more, but my goodness me. Up next, Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg himself interviewed the Bruges Group's Robert Olds about a mysterious Gully Foyle's new book, 75 Brexit Benefits. That's to come after this.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good evening. It's that moment you've all been waiting for. Yes, time now for Jacob's Book Club. The Bruges Group's Robert Olds told Jacob about the mysterious Gully Foyle's new book, 75 Brexit Benefits. And some of the answers might surprise you.
Well, I'm delighted to have Robert Olds with me of the Bruges Group to talk about a new book that they have just published, 75 Brexit Benefits, written by the mysterious Gully Foyle. Now, tell me, Robert, who is Gully Foyle? I thought it was you.
Well, I can't disclose who Gully Foyle is because he fears for his job. There is so much prejudice out there against people of our persuasion, people who work in various industries, people who are experts and have something really important to contribute, can indeed face persecution and dismissal from their job if they raise their head above the parapet.
And one of the most important ones, it seems to me, is financial, that the money that isn't going from the UK to the EU anymore. How important do you rank that in the list of benefits?
Well, Britain has a serious financial crisis at this time. It's not talked about enough because I think the numbers are so alarming. But whilst we were in the European Union, if we remained in the EU, we would be borrowing money, not just to keep the lights on and to pay our interest, but also to shore up the financial situation in the EU and other countries who have been even more reckless than the UK. And it's a serious liability that we're facing. And the Bruges Group's led the way in raising awareness about this because we're literally handing over, or were, billions each year to countries to make sure that their financial situation is stable. And if they go bust, their debts would be put on us, which is something we can't afford. So we're outside the EU now, we're outside those mechanisms, and we're safe from the risks that they would pose to us.
OK, is that right? I thought there wasn't any liability for other EU member states' debts. When the United States started, one of the major reasons for the federal state, one of Alexander Hamilton's most important contributions to the US, was the federalisation of debt. That hasn't happened in the EU, so we wouldn't be liable for Greek debt, would we?
Oh, absolutely, yes, and we were. There's various mechanisms that they had put in place, and we were liable. And thankfully, we're now free of that. And it was costing us tens of billions a year, contributing to these other mechanisms. David Cameron falsely claimed that he had taken them out, taken the UK out of those mechanisms, but he hadn't. We still remained in others. And if the EU and other countries in the EU were to go under, the bills would be facing us. But we're free of that now.
But is this going back to the £350 million figure that was on the bus and actually wasn't a completely solid figure? How sure are we that these figures are accurate, well audited, not just propaganda against the EU?
Oh, well, this is on top of the 350 million figure, which is, of course, a week which the EU would have control of. And so this is more. There's way more that the EU is costing us than just the figures on the back of that bus.
Is it? What about trade? Because we have got a more restricted access to the EU market. What have we been able to do on trade instead? And does that counterweight the loss of access to the EU market, or have we sold a mackerel for a sprat?
Well, we're still selling into the European Union single market and its customs union, just as we're importing from them. We still have a trade agreement with the European Union. Plus, of course, we have the other trade agreements with other nations around the world. And we've managed to negotiate more. We're negotiating, we've managed to achieve agreements with India, Australia, better deal with the United States, which is absolutely crucial than that which the European Union has. Plus, for those who are buying products on the supermarket shelves, we've got cheaper prices. We removed tariffs on things that didn't make sense, such as we had tariffs in place that were protecting European Union growers of oranges. We don't really have much of an orange industry in the UK.
Somerset grows the most beautiful oranges, but not enough of them.
Not enough to supply Britain's tastes. And of course, we were supporting France's colonies in the purchase of bananas. This is not meaning paying higher prices, when of course we should be getting cheaper market prices, cheaper world market prices, and of course supporting those countries in the Commonwealth who've stood by Britain for particularly in the last century, and those countries that we have traditional alliances with, and it's meant cheaper prices for people in the shops because we've removed nonsense European tariffs that defend industries we don't simply have in the UK.
But there aren't 75 benefits. There's one benefit. And that one benefit is the most enormous benefit. The biggest benefit of all is that our democracy actually functions, and the government put in by the British people can decide how the country is governed. All the other 75 benefits flow from that one primary benefit.
Absolutely. The most important issue is, of course, always going to be democracy, and we have the sovereignty now, and we have the right to make sure our politicians know that the buck stops with them and that they're accountable, and we can make the changes that we want to have happen. Plus, of course, there's also another benefit, which is almost intangible. The country's going through a national revival at the moment. We see with the raising of the flag, the Union flag, and of course the St George's flag, people are wanting to celebrate their identity as being British. I don't think that would be happening whilst we were still in the European Union. We have a chance now to have people working for the best interests of this country, which they weren't doing when we were in the EU. They were thinking, what policies can we do that would make the other European countries happy? What can we do to harm ourselves in our own interest, undermine British jobs, give them even more money, which we don't have, to make them happy, to try and seem good Europeans? Now we're working towards making sure we're good British people and making sure that our country's going to succeed.
Well, if we want true national revival, let's watch what happens in Australia over the winter and see if we can win back the Ashes. Robert, thank you very much for standing in for Gully Foyle and for this excellent publication, which is, I hope, available in all good bookshops and from our friends at Amazon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thanks to Sir Jacob and indeed Robert Olds. Well, Gully Foyle's new book, 75 Brexit Benefits, Tangible Benefits from the UK Having Left the EU, is available now from all good retailers. And you can see that interview in full on all our digital platforms right now. Well, it has been the most remarkable 5 weeks of party conferences, but Parliament returns on Monday. The question is, will it have actually changed anything out there in the body politic? Have you changed your mind after hearing those big speeches? Not sure many people might have done. Well, that's all from me, and Jacob Rees-Mogg himself is back tomorrow, but up next it's the one and only Patrick Christie's.
Tom, thank you very, very much. I've been enjoying your stellar coverage for various different party conferences. Loads on tonight. Big exclusive for you, actually. We've had 1,000 illegal migrants cross the channel today. I've got a human trafficker for you who appears to be a member, or at least was, of the Afghan National Army. We're going to blow the lid off that. And why is it that we're only just being told now that the Manchester synagogue attacker called police himself and said that he was killing Jews for ISIS? What were they trying to hide? Stay tuned.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed Aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good evening. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. There is a little bit of rain pushing its way southwards across northern parts through tonight into tomorrow, but many places staying largely dry. The rain in the north is due to a frontal system that's already made its way in across northern and western Scotland, and with this we're seeing the winds strengthening further as we go through the night, risk of gales in some exposed spots. The rain does also edge its way southwards into southern parts of Scotland, perhaps northern England and Northern Ireland as we head towards dawn tomorrow, but further south across much of England and Wales staying largely dry. Some clear spells around, and with light winds, clear spells, temperatures are going to drop and there could be some locally dense patches of fog forming as we head through the early hours of tomorrow morning. Otherwise, through tomorrow morning then, a mostly dry start across much of Scotland, the rain having pushed its way in towards the south, and so the borders area waking up to a bit of a damp picture, and also quite damp across Northern Ireland, and there will be a few spots of rain across some parts of northern England where the cloud is thick enough, but across the rest of England and Wales really it's a dry start to the day, and there will be some sunshine around, and so that sunshine should help clear any mist and fog patches that do develop overnight. Staying pretty grey, quite murky with low cloud and drizzly rain across Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, parts of northern England and perhaps the far north of Wales as well through tomorrow. Otherwise, a generally dry picture, often quite cloudy, but there should be some sunshine breaking through, and in the sunshine feeling relatively warm with temperatures in the high teens for most of us. Overnight there will be a bit more damp weather pushing into parts of western Scotland. That will clear though as we go through into Friday, and so actually Friday for many, away from perhaps Orkney and Shetland where there'll be a few showery bursts of rain around, actually Friday looks like a largely dry day with some decent sunshine on offer. Quite a bit of cloud to come as we go through this weekend, particularly on Sunday, but most of us will see the sunshine at times. Bye-bye.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed Aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's Newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think for far too long in this country, millions of people felt as though they weren't represented at all by the establishment media.
GB News was needed because there literally was no other voice. Everyone was saying the same thing.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
But journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
Charlie Peters, he gave a voice to the victims of grooming gangs, and now, of course, it's led to a national inquiry.
GB News exists to make sure those concerns are put forward and people feel as though what
what they want to ask is put to those in power.
We don't take orders from anyone. We ask the questions our viewers and listeners want answering.
I know what's actually being discussed by my family and my friends. Us ordinary, hard-working British people have had enough. We've had enough.
They're fed up with the same old establishment nonsense. Everything that we do is opening up conversations that others are afraid to go at.
Why are you illegally bringing people into Britain?
That is our job. Our job is to get to the truth.
If it's important to you watching or listening at home, then it's important to us as well.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christie's, and breaking tonight, 1,000 illegals crossed the channel today alone, and I've got a big GB News exclusive for you. Is a UK-trained ex-member of the Afghan Special Forces actually a human trafficker bringing illegals into Britain? Also,
conference, the next Conservative government will abolish stamp duty on your home.
Oof, has Kemi Badenoch just given Nigel Farage a run for his money? Plus, why didn't the police or the Labour government tell us that the Manchester synagogue attacker called 999 to say that he was a member of Islamic State? And it's the Chinese spy scandal that could finally bring Sir Keir Starmer down. Plus,
the reason I got on Shakespeare because I heard a Caribbean version of Midsummer Night's Dream.
Okay.
It was great, so many different voices, and I just thought if you could do Shakespeare in your own voice, to be or not to be, that is the question, you know.
well, Lenny Henry thinks that all black people in the UK should be paid reparations. On my panel tonight, we've got the director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the journalist Nina Mishkov. And what on earth has just happened on Big Brother?
You said, but you haven't got a willy.
Oh. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. I blow the lid off the Afghan Special Forces member now operating as a human trafficker. Next.
Patrick, thank you very much and good evening. The top stories. GB News can exclusively reveal that more than 1,000 small boat migrants have crossed the English Channel today. Take the total for the year to more than 35,400. The figure brings this year's total around 1,500 short of last year's entire figure, a major blow to the government's pledge to smash the gangs. Maritime sources warn crossings could surpass last year's total within days, with more clear weather ahead. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood says the crossings are utterly unacceptable, insisting the UK will restore order to its borders. Elsewhere, Kemi Badenoch has vowed to abolish stamp duty, calling it a bad tax, as she delivered her first keynote speech as Conservative leader in Manchester earlier today. She's promising a new economic golden rule, splitting savings between cutting the deficit and lowering taxes, and pledging £47 billion in cuts with £9 billion in new spending. Ms Badenoch told party members only the Conservatives can restore a